The basement could be adjusted at the user's will. You couldn't create sci-fi or magical weapons in it, but it basically had every modern equipment. The four of them entered the basement and began to familiarize with their new weapons or train. First up was Kappa. The multi-barrel EMP rifle looked big at 2 meters long, but it wasn't too heavy, much lighter than Zheng's Gatling cannon. It had a mechanism that pushed air out from the bottom to reduce recoil. So Kappa didn't have much difficulty handling the rifle. A gunner doesn't just spray with a machine gun. That's what idiots do when they vent. A gunner can cover you while you stand within their zone of fire and not get hit. So he must be familiar with his weapon up to every vibration, the paths of every bullet, and every stray bullet. Because you will move forward inside this rain of bullets. Kappa explained and tested the EMP rifle. As the rifle started to rotate, the flare that came out of the barrels was a deep blue color, denoting it wasn't using gunpowder anymore. This was the color of EMP light. Countless bullets hit a 10-meter thick alloy plate in front of them. Tiny traces appeared on the alloy plate, or perhaps wall. Almost instantly, the targets behind the wall was shredded apart. The shooting only took a second but had shown the power of the rifle. Kappa and Wang Xia were obviously shocked. Zheng and Xian nodded normally. They either seen more powerful weapons or wasn't moved by this destructive power. This is the EMP rifle? Shit, this destructiveness is almost overpowered. The rifle pushed light blue color air out that surrounded Kappa. The gigantic sci-fi rifle along with the bear-like Kappa gave off a stunning presence. Zheng laughed. This rifle can shoot 70,000 bullets in a second. The bullets are slim as a needle. So the normal version has to reload every few seconds, which is the biggest limitation. However, the unlimited ammo version has no such limitation and lives up to its cost. Kappa then asked in curiosity. If a tier C weapon is already so powerful, I can't even imagine tier B and a sci-fi weapons. Zheng said. In general, sci-fi weapons require the least amount of rank rewards. Usually only the unlimited versions cost rewards. Magical weapons with the same power typically cost twice as much, which is 2 rank C rewards. Furthermore, they won't be an unlimited use version. So in conclusion, the sci-fi weapons are the best for teams in the early and mid stages. The most expensive exchanges are enhancements and abilities. Both are much more expensive than weapons. Enhancements don't have a limited use factor, plus, you become stronger even without weapons. In the middle stage, the team will switch to a combination of sci-fi weapons and enhancements. At the end stage, the team will depend on enhancements and magical items. Kappa and Wang Xia both seemed excited. They weren't worried about battles at this scale but instead showed an interest in them. Perhaps this was the quality of a soldier. Next was Wang Xia's turn. The gravity mines were expendable and cost a rank D reward each. It was painful to test it, but they had to know the power so Wang Xia could set the bombs at appropriate distances. Since there was no one to step on the mine, they had to set a timed bomb next to it. This mine allows you to set a trigger weight. So we can distinguish the weight of the monsters and us and don't have to worry about stepping on the mine. Zheng explained. Wang Xia placed the mine next to the alloy wall. It was pitch black and only the size of a fist. He shook his head at its non-flashy look. Then he set a timed bomb to a minute and set it next to the mine. To be safe, they ran into a shelter 500 meters away. The minute passed and the timed bomb exploded. The ball of fire made them close their eyes for a while. After the fire was over, there was only a hole in the wall and nothing else changed. They looked in confusion that the gravity mine couldn't be so weak for its rank D reward. Wang Xia ran toward the wall and the others followed. The bomb blasted a 1-meter deep hole in the wall and the ground. This ground was also made of alloys. However, the gravity mine didn't explode. It sat in the center of the hole peacefully, surviving through the explosion. Wang Xia picked it up and examined it. This isn't right. Can it be a faulty unit? Zheng thought for a bit and said. Set the trigger weight to 1 kilogram. He picked up a metal fragment from the ground. Then the four of them ran off again. At the 100-meter mark, he entered the unlock mode then lobbed the metal to the mine. As the mine got hit, he suddenly felt a sense of danger. Everyone else was at least 300 meters away by now, but Zheng was still at the 100-meter mark. He felt his body getting heavier and the sense of danger growing by the moment. Without thinking, he activated explosion and jumped forward 10 meters. The mine exploded behind him. The ground began rolling up to the mine and the area quickly spread to where Zheng was and stopped at 10 meters to his back. He ran another 100 meters by now, but the huge force of attraction was pulling his body. Every step he took embedded a footprint into the metal ground. After the mine explosion and his explosion was over, he only made it 100 meters away. All the metal within a 200-meter radius was rolled up into a sphere. The sphere had an uneven surface, as if a huge hand knitted the metal together. The wall was gone and became a part of the sphere. Isn't this too powerful? Zheng looked at the destruction in shock. True. This is a different type of destruction from explosions. Explosions affect a larger radius, but those outside the center usually don't take too much damage. The fatality area is within 10 meters. However, anyone within the area of effect of the gravity mine will die. You are no exception. Xian said. Zheng felt a shiver down his spine. If he wasn't decisive and used explosion immediately, he might have become a part of the sphere by now. That force of attraction might be able to reach beyond 200 meters. The gravity mine indeed belonged to a tier D sci-fi weapon. Xian said to Wang Xia. The force of the mine is immense. It can even destroy military-grade structures, so you must be careful when handling it. You can take out a large pack of dinosaurs at once in this movie. If they provide rewards, you will earn the most out of us. Wang Xia was dazed as he stared at the sphere. He muttered. Damn. It was only a little ball. I wonder how powerful it can be if the mine was bigger. Zheng laughed. There's one called a continental gravity bomb. It requires a rank S reward and 40,000 points. I can't say how powerful it is, but most definitely beyond that of a nuclear bomb. Kappa and Wang Xia had no words for it. Xian then said. My pistols don't need any testing. Gauze weapons wouldn't be too weak. Let's talk about your combat training. Zhen was confused for a moment and pointed at himself. My combat training? I didn't exchange any new weapons or abilities. I don't think combat training is necessary. I just have to keep practicing my blood energy and chi. Xian took out a piece of paper. I calculated your movement speed and strength during explosion and concluded there's room for improvement. Once you reach a limit, the power from explosion will increase to an astounding degree that's able to take on the majority of movies. Zhen knew Xian wouldn't say any empty words. If he said it was possible, then it would probably be the truth. He didn't know how explosion could be improved, so he listened to Xian with full attention. This limit is the sonic barrier. Xian adjusted his glasses. Have you ever felt that air became thicker when you run at full speed? Like air had increased in density or became a liquid. This slows you down. You have such strength and reaction speed, yet you still need 6 seconds to run 100 meters. This is proof that air has become an obstacle to you. You just haven't realized it? I did felt the change in air, but what does it have to do with explosion? Xian said. It's actually about increasing your overall strength instead of just the explosion. Have you ever seen One Piece? A group of normal people called CP9 mastered a technique called Rokushiki and became superhuman in close combat. Of course, that's just anime. I am not asking you to exchange the technique. However, through my analysis, if you are a bit stronger, faster and break the sonic barrier, you can make use of air. You can totally learn the underlying principle of Jeppo and change your direction mid-air. Or Saru to gain extreme speed. Or compress air to attack those further away. Your attacks will have a much wider variety, which effectively increases your overall power by tenfolds under explosion. Zhen became excited. He was almost powerless against his clone. He could feel that the clone wasn't even using all his strength, perhaps not even half. That fight was over before the clone entered unlock mode. If Zhen could master what Xian said, then he would regain confidence to fight his clone again. Great. Let's try it now. Zhen ran up the basement stairs, then exited the room. He connected with God to heal the injury caused by using explosion. Then hurried back to the basement. Everyone else was still taking a break when they saw Zhen came back. He walked to an empty area, then entered the explosion mode. The hair-thin blood vessel started to burst. And Zhen disappeared from everyone's sight, leaving 2 footprints embedded into this alloy floor. Almost instantaneously, an explosion happened in another place. Zhen appeared for an instant, then disappeared again. The air rippled visibly like water. The world through Zhen's eyes was getting bloody as the blood vessels in his eyes burst. However, he finally broke through the sonic barrier. The air thickened when he used explosion. He continued compressing the energy inside him until the air density felt like real liquid. When his strength and speed reached a point where he could break through this liquid, he stepped on them and ran up to the air. He suddenly swept his leg with enough force to break apart the liquid air. It created a vacuum blade where the tip of his foot passed through. The vacuum blade flew straight ahead and sliced into the floor. Before Zhen could see its effect, all the energy within him had depleted. The air turned from liquid to thicker to normal, and he fell from midair. His skin began bursting apart and blood shot out from the wounds, painting him with blood. There was not a single place of intact on his body aside from several major blood vessels. All he could feel was pain and itch that he almost fainted. The other 3 people carried him up to the platform and healed through God. None of them got to see a 2-meter deep mark left by the vacuum blade. That was only the power through air. This means you don't have enough energy to sustain the output. If you can last 10 seconds with explosion, you can only last 3 to 4 seconds with this improved form. Xian said. Zhen nodded. Right, vampire bloodline gives me increased recovery rate and chi gives my body the toughness to use explosion. I created the ability in a coincidence and came to a balance after several tries. However, my body couldn't handle it when I compressed the energy further this time. Xian thought for a moment. That's for certain. You should be prepared to die when you reach for a higher power. Without this determination, you might as well save points until you have enough to leave. Zhen looked at his fist. I am not scared to die. I am scared that my death is meaningless. I have to stay alive, to revive everyone, and I have to meet my clone again. He's the other me. I will free him from the suffering. If going from tier C to tier B increased your blood energy and chi tenfolds like you said, then going from tier B to tier A will definitely be greater than tenfolds. That's when you can handle explosion perfectly and use the improved form. The tier A vampire bloodline was the Marquis, followed by tier A prince, and finally tier S king. However, there were multiple directions chi could take after tier B. These were all manuals with specific names ranging from tier A to tier S. Zheng smiled bitterly. Ah, tier A, and 2 of them. We still have to save rewards and points to revive team members. This will be difficult. Xian said. You are not the only one that have to save points to revive team members. Like how you spent points to exchange enhancement for Wangxia, each of us can contribute to the revivals. Which means the more members we accumulate, the easier it will become. If it takes you 6,000 points alone, it will take 10 people 600 points each. Zheng finally got it and said. So that was why you didn't choose to revive the stronger members. Haha. Xian nodded. Then Lori opened the door and came to the platform. She laughed and said. Are the 4 of you even going to eat? The dishes are ready. Hee, I made my best dishes. Hurry up and come in. Aside from Xian still looking indifferent, a smile appeared on the other 3 men's faces. They entered the room and saw several delicate dishes on the table. Wangxia and Campo looked at each other, then laughed out together. Didn't you say we can exchange alcohol here? How about some beiju? Got to love that strong taste. Zheng smiled at the suggestion. He went over to God and brought back several bottles of Maotai and vodka. These only cost a few points. Campa and Wangxia immediately grabbed a bottle for themselves and took off the corks. The aromatic scent of authentic Maotai and strong alcohol scent of vodka filled the table. They each took a large gulp, looking satisfied. Wangxia muttered. This is the real deal. I only drank it once while in the army, only a small cup. I still can't forget that taste. This bottle is even more aromatic. If we bring it back, it's going to be worth tens of thousands. Haha. He took another gulp. Kappa drank until his eyes looked wet. He said loudly as he drank. We loved to binge like this back then, and talked about women, cash, and war. F***ck, those days won't come back anymore. Who didn't have their sorrow if they chose to enter this world? By the time the meal was over, Kappa and Wang Xia were knocked out. Zheng and Xian each carried a person and threw them into their new rooms. Before Xian left, he said to Zheng. Don't you feel that you are adapting to the unlock mode? I think you should use the improved explosion as much as possible while still in this dimension. Even if you get injured critically, God will be able to heal you. You can get used to it just like how you are with the unlock mode. Then once you obtained enough energy, you will be the strongest member of the team. The strongest member. Zheng cuddled Lori to sleep. Then he stared at the ceiling and pondered. They didn't meet again for the next several days. Xian poured himself into analyzing the sky stick. It was difficult to create the final product even with the design papers, especially the power device. It belonged to the magical field that was embedded with ancient characters. Xian wasn't able to replicate this currently. The exchange price for this part was over 1,000 points and a rank D reward. So they discussed and decided to continue using Zheng's sky stick for the next movie. Kappa and Wang Xia trained in their basements. They were an international mercenary and special force to begin with. Their physical fitness surpassed even most normal people that lived through a movie or two. Furthermore, their skills with weapons and special abilities made them more destructive than Zheng at certain situations. Zheng practiced the improved form of explosion in the remaining days, which he named destruction. If explosion was letting two energies run loose in his body, destruction squeezes every bit of power from these energies. It no longer gives any consideration to the condition of his body and intended to bring destruction to both his enemies and himself. As for the techniques, he didn't bother naming them and used the names Xian told him. Jeppo. Saru. Rankyaku. Shiken. In which he used his fist. Jeppo let him walk on air and change direction at will. Saru gave him a sudden burst of speed. Rankyaku for long-range attack. Shijun with his fist for close-range destruction. And he could throw his axe for an attack with explosion. Even though destruction could only last a few seconds, and would render him powerless afterward, but he was invincible during these few seconds. No one could beat him in close range, not even Yinkong. Perhaps his clone was the only person that could rival him in this state. Time quickly passed and they had prepared everything. Everyone came to the platform early and waited quietly. After a good while, the beams finally came down from God and its voice sounded in their heads. Enter the beam within 30 seconds. Target locked. The Lost World, Jurassic Park teleportation begins.